The British royal family is no stranger to controversy, but few situations have stirred as much quiet entry behind palace walls as the dramatic developments surrounding Ray Mill House.
Picture this: a 19th-century country house tucked into the rolling green folds of Wiltshire, England. 12 acres of gardens tended with obsessive love. A stone path leading to a front door that has, for 3 decades, represented not just a home, but a sanctuary, the one place where one of the most scrutinized women in the world could simply exhale. Now picture that sanctuary at the center of the most explosive royal family dispute since the days of Princess Diana. A quiet property transfer recorded in land registry documents becomes a palace firestorm. A food writer and restaurant critic finds himself cast as a villain in a royal power drama he never signed up for. And a mother, who also happens to be the Queen of England, chooses to be a mother first. This is the story of Ray Mill House, Tom Parker Bowles, Queen Camilla, and the fault line running straight through the heart of the British monarchy in 2026. Stay with us, because this story goes far deeper than a property deed. It goes to the very question of what kind of King William V will choose to be. To understand why the transfer of Ray Mill House sent shockwaves through palace corridors, you need to understand what the property represents, not just financially, but emotionally. Ray Mill House is a Grade II listed 19th-century country house situated in Lacock, a hamlet near the village of Lacock in Wiltshire, England. It was constructed around 1860 and listed on England's National Heritage Register in 1987 by English Heritage. On paper, it is a handsome piece of English countryside architecture. In reality, it is something far more significant. It is the place where Camilla Parker Bowles rebuilt her life from the rubble of one of the most publicly humiliating divorces in modern British history. In 1996, following her separation and eventual divorce from Andrew Parker Bowles, Camilla purchased the property for £850,000, a figure equivalent to roughly £2 million in today's money. The purchase itself required outside assistance. According to multiple reports, including those citing land registry and financial records, the Earl of Halifax established a trust fund to assist Camilla with the acquisition, following a painful period in which she had suffered a £400,000 loss as one of the names at Lloyd's of London during the turbulent early 1990s underwriting crisis that ruined many wealthy investors. The financial facts matter here because they frame the human story. Camilla was, in 1996, a woman under siege. The tabloids were merciless. Public opinion, still raw with grief and loyalty toward Princess Diana, was overwhelmingly hostile. She was labeled the third person in the royal marriage, a scarlet woman, a villain in a fairy tale that had no place for complicated human love. Into all of that, Ray Mill House arrived as a refuge. Royal biographer Ingrid Seward, one of the most respected chroniclers of the modern British monarchy, has described Ray Mill House as Camilla's escape from what she called the whole royal world. According to reporting in the Daily Mail and corroborated by the Telegraph, friends who know Camilla intimately say she is simply able to be herself at Ray Mill, a quality that becomes rarer the higher one climbs within the institution of the crown. Camilla lived at Ray Mill House full-time between 1996 and 2003. It was, during those years, not a weekend retreat or a second home. It was the primary address, the place where her children, Tom Parker Bowles and Laura Lopez, lived with her through the years of maximum public hostility and gradual rehabilitation. When Camilla eventually moved to Clarence House with then Prince Charles in 2003, Ray Mill remained hers. She made that a condition. According to reports in The Sun and confirmed by multiple royal observers, Camilla struck a personal agreement with Charles before their marriage in April 2005 that Ray Mill House would remain her private bolthole, the one place that predated the royal life and would endure regardless of what came next. Following the death of Queen Elizabeth II in September 2022, when the weight of national mourning pressed down on every member of the royal family and the new queen consort's every move was scrutinized by billions of people worldwide, it was to Ray Mill that Camilla retreated. Friends told the Daily Mail that she sought solace at the Wiltshire property after a week of extraordinary public duty, returning to the garden, to the quiet lanes of Lacock, and to the rhythms of a life she had cultivated before crowns entered the picture. King Charles, for his part, has made his own feelings about Ray Mill's importance unmistakably clear. In 2025, according to reports in the Daily Mail and corroborated by GB News, the king purchased the neighboring property, known as the Old Mill, for approximately £3 million using his private funds. The stated reason was to prevent the adjacent land from being converted into a commercial wedding venue, which would have shattered the privacy of the surrounding area. £3 million of private royal money spent to protect his wife's peace of mind. That is not a transaction. That is a declaration. The 12-acre gardens at Ray Mill, the design of which Charles himself reportedly supervised, hold decades of memories, including the wedding reception of Camilla's daughter Laura Lopez and her husband Harry Lopez in 2006. This is the ground on which the blended family of the Windsor's Parker Bowleses has played out its most private moments. This is the property now at the center of a storm. In early 2026, a discovery by the Daily Mail's Eden Confidential column sent royal watchers into a quiet but significant frenzy. Land registry documents, the publicly available records that log the legal ownership of all property in England and Wales, showed that Ray Mill House had been transferred. Quietly. Without announcement. Without a word from Buckingham Palace or any royal spokesperson. The new registered owners listed in those documents were Harry Lopez, Camilla's son-in-law, married to her daughter Laura, and a financier named Jake Irwin. On first reading, this looked like a straightforward family transfer. But as Hello! Magazine, GB News, and other outlets began to dig into the details, a more layered picture emerged. Harry Lopez and Jake Irwin, GB News was able to confirm through sources familiar with the arrangement, are listed as trustees for land registry purposes, but they are not the beneficial owners. This is a crucial legal distinction. A beneficial owner is the person who truly owns, controls, and benefits from a property, even if someone else holds the legal title on paper. Under the reported structure, Harry Lopez represents Camilla's daughter Laura Lopez as beneficiary, and Jake Irwin represents Camilla's son, Tom Parker Bowles. In plain English, Camilla has transferred the beneficial ownership of her most cherished private property to her two children, Laura and Tom, using a trust structure managed by their respective representatives. As GB News and Hello! Magazine both reported in March 2026, this type of arrangement is commonly used in estate planning, particularly by individuals of significant wealth who wish to manage inheritance tax liabilities or ensure the orderly succession of assets. The timing of such transfers is often driven by financial planning thresholds. In the United Kingdom, inheritance tax rules and the 7-year gift rule mean that the sooner assets are transferred, the better positioned the beneficiaries may be from a tax perspective. There is nothing inherently sinister about what Camilla has done. It is the kind of careful financial planning that estate lawyers advise their clients to consider regularly, especially as they age or as their assets become more complex. It is, by all accounts, a mother looking after her children's futures. But nothing in the life of a queen consort exists in a vacuum. And the timing, in the context of long-simmering tensions between the Prince of Wales and Tom Parker Bowles, transformed a routine legal transfer into a question mark that palace insiders could not ignore. The relationship between Prince William and Tom Parker Bowles has never been the stuff of heartwarming blended family stories. This is well documented. When King Charles III married Camilla in April 2005, both William and Harry reportedly asked their father to reconsider. According to accounts published in the Daily Beast and reported widely across British media, the princes harbored deep reservations, rooted, naturally, in their fierce loyalty to the memory of their mother, Diana, Princess of Wales. Charles proceeded with the marriage, and both princes eventually attended, publicly accepted the new union, and, over time, came to show Camilla varying degrees of warmth and respect. Tom Parker Bowles, a respected food writer, restaurant critic, and author of several cookbooks, most recently the acclaimed Cooking and the Crown, Royal Recipes from Queen Victoria to King Charles III, navigated his new proximity to royalty with characteristic wit and self-deprecation. In a widely reported interview with the Good Food podcast in 2025, he joked about the absurdity of his position with characteristic frankness. "I tell you," he said, according to reporting in InStyle and the Daily Mail, "that would be the quickest way to revolution. I think we're a fairly balanced and sober and sensible country on the whole. But if I suddenly became a prince, I think that Buckingham Palace gates would be stormed." The joke reveals the intelligence of the man. Tom Parker Bowles has always understood exactly where he stands, close to the crown, but never of it. In an interview with People magazine, he was equally clear-eyed, "We are married in, we are not the royal family." It is a distinction he appears to embrace rather than resent. And yet, despite Tom's public diplomacy, the relationship with William has reportedly been fraught for years. The Daily Beast reported in late 2024 that William was said to have made clear he would not attend the royal family's Christmas celebrations at Sandringham if Tom Parker Bowles was on the guest list. This report, which circulated widely and was discussed in outlets including The List and Stylecaster, painted a picture of genuine personal tension, not merely the awkward distance of step-relatives who don't know each other well, but a specifically directed wariness. The underlying concern, according to sources cited by multiple royal commentators, centers on a very particular suspicion that Tom, who moves freely through elite media, literary, and social circles in London, he is a fixture on the book launch and restaurant circuit, a well-connected figure in British cultural life, is perceived by some within William's circle as someone who talks too freely. In the hyper-paranoid atmosphere of palace politics, where every royal faction is waging its own quiet public relations campaign and leaks to the press are treated as matters of institutional security, even social gregariousness can be read as a threat. To put it plainly, the view, reportedly held by some close to the Prince of Wales, is that Tom Parker Bowles knows too much, moves in circles that are too media-adjacent, and cannot be fully trusted with the kind of sensitive, behind-the-scenes family information that inevitably circulates when you are the son of the Queen. Tom himself, in an interview with The Telegraph, addressed his deliberate effort to stay clear of the political dynamics of the family. "I learned a long time ago not to put my fat fingers into the world of William and Harry, but what they went through was appalling. I've had a billionth of what they've had to endure, but I sympathize." It is the statement of a man who has walked this tightrope for 2 decades and knows precisely how it frays. Here is where the real story becomes genuinely remarkable, not because of dramatic interventions or secret operations, but because of what a quiet administrative act can reveal about the tensions within one of the world's most powerful families. When the land registry transfer of Ray Mill House became public knowledge in early 2026, it did not happen in a political vacuum. It happened at a moment when Prince William is, by all observable accounts, actively preparing for kingship. He has taken on increasing public responsibilities. His office has, according to multiple palace watchers, become more assertive in shaping the royal family's public narrative. The transition from Prince of Wales to eventual King William V is not a distant abstraction. It is a process underway. Against this backdrop, the quiet transfer of a property, one located immediately adjacent to a neighboring estate purchased by the king for £3 million, in a transaction that effectively moved Queen Camilla's most private residence out of direct royal oversight and into the hands of her son, a man whom some in William's circle view with suspicion, landed with considerable force. Sources familiar with palace dynamics, as reported by GB News and discussed in royal commentary circles, suggest that the transfer was noted at the highest levels of the establishment. Whether it triggered any formal review process, or whether concerns were raised through official channels, is not something that has been confirmed by Buckingham Palace or the Prince of Wales's office. No spokesperson for the royal family has made any public statement about the property transfer beyond what was confirmed in land registry records, and in GB News's clarification that the beneficial ownership structure does not represent any change in Camilla's practical use of the property. What is clear, from the pattern of reporting across Hello Magazine, GB News, the Daily Mail, and the Telegraph, is this: the transfer came as a surprise to many royal observers. Its quiet nature, no press release, no coordinated royal communication, no prepared statement, amplified the intrigue around it. In an institution where every public gesture is calibrated and every word weighed, silence speaks. And in the context of existing tensions between William's circle and Tom Parker Bowles, the fact that Tom was a beneficiary of the transfer added a layer of palace politics to what might otherwise have been an entirely unremarkable act of family estate planning. The question that began circulating in royal commentary networks was not whether Camilla had done anything wrong. By all legal and moral assessments, she had not. The question was about optics, about timing, and about what it revealed of the lines being drawn within the family as William prepares to one day take the throne. This is the moment the human story overtakes the institutional one. Sources close to both camps, as described in the constellation of royal reporting that followed the land registry discovery, indicate that Queen Camilla responded to the brewing tension not with the stiff formality of palace protocol, but with the directness of a mother whose child has been caught in the crossfire of royal politics. By multiple accounts, Camilla communicated with William, the nature and formality of those communications remaining, properly, within the family. To make a fundamental point, Tom is not a threat. He is a son, a food writer, a man who has spent 20 years navigating the extraordinary peculiarity of being close to the crown without ever being of it, and who has done so with good humor and considerable dignity. The plea, to whatever degree it was made, in whatever form it took, was the plea of a mother who has seen this movie before. Camilla has lived through the palace's capacity for institutional coldness. She was, for years, the target of it. She knows what it looks like when an individual is cast as a problem to be managed rather than a person to be understood. She also carries the weight of Diana's story, a woman who was, in different but resonant ways, destroyed by the very machinery of the institution she had married into. Camilla does not need to be told what happens when the palace turns its institutional gaze on someone it has decided is inconvenient. She lived through the years when she was that person. For William, the situation is no less complicated. He is a man preparing to be king in an era of extraordinary institutional pressure. The monarchy survives, in the 21st century, by managing its narrative with extraordinary care. Leaks are existential threats. Public trust is fragile. The post-Harry era has left William hyper-vigilant about who sits close to the family's inner life and what they do with that access. But there is also this. William has lived, from the age of 15, with the consequences of what happens when an institution mistakes control for wisdom. His mother's story is not an abstraction to him. It is the defining wound of his life. And in 2025, in a candid interview with the comedian Eugene Levy, reported by The Royalist in October 2025, William himself spoke with remarkable openness about the trauma his parents' marriage had inflicted on him and about his determination not to make the same mistakes. Not making the same mistakes, for William, must mean something more than not having an affair. It must mean not allowing the machinery of palace control to grind down the people around him who pose no genuine threat but who find themselves, by accident of family connection, in the wrong place at the wrong moment. Camilla's message to William, in whatever form it took, was fundamentally this: look at Tom clearly. Look past the suspicion, the political anxiety, the whisper networks. See a man who has chosen, consistently and publicly, to stay well clear of palace politics. A man who makes jokes about Buckingham Palace being stormed rather than angling for a title. A man whose relationship with King Charles is warm, genuine, and built on real affection rather than calculation. Is that the kind of person the future king wants to treat as an adversary? Every era of the British monarchy is shaped by the character of its monarch, not just their decisions in moments of grand ceremony, but their choices in the quieter, private moments that never make the official record. William's kingship, when it comes, will be defined in part by how he manages the complex human geography of the family he inherits, the Parker Bowleses and the Lopezes, the Sussexes, and whatever form their relationship with the family takes, the vast network of cousins and connections that make up the extended Windsor world. Tom Parker Bowles, viewed objectively, represents the least threatening version of a stepbrother one could imagine. He has not written a memoir cataloging royal grievances. He has not given interviews to American television programs describing palace dysfunction. He has not leveraged his proximity to the crown for personal brand building in any manner that has embarrassed the institution. He writes about food. He champions British cooking. He made his children available to serve as pages at the king's coronation in 2023, an act of genuine loyalty to the family his mother married into. His daughter Lola and son Freddie, who calls Queen Camilla Gaga and King Charles Yupa, according to Tom's interview with People magazine in 2024, have grown up in genuine closeness to the monarch and his queen. These are not the family dynamics of a man running a covert operation against the Prince of Wales. And yet the tension persists. It persists because palace politics is not really about individuals. It is about proximity to power and the anxiety that proximity generates. In an institution where information is currency, anyone who sits close to the source of information and moves freely in media circles will attract suspicion, regardless of their actual intentions. What the Ray Mill story ultimately reveals is the gap between the institutional reflexes of the palace, its tendency toward control, its hunger for managed narratives, its suspicion of anything that falls outside its direct oversight, and the human reality of a blended family trying to find its footing as the crown passes to a new generation. William's Christmas 2024 choice, to reportedly absent himself from Sandringham rather than share the celebrations with Tom, as discussed in the Daily Beast and reported across multiple outlets, was itself a statement. It said, "I am willing to let institutional discomfort override family cohesion." The question of whether Camilla's intervention has shifted that calculus is one that will be answered not in press releases, but in the small, visible gestures that the royal family uses to communicate what it cannot say aloud, who appears at which gathering, who stands where in official photographs, whose name appears in whose public statements. History, as Camilla knows better than almost anyone alive, has a long memory. It would be an injustice to this story to discuss Tom Parker Bowles only as a political object, a piece on a palace chessboard, a name in a land registry document. He is, by all accounts, a man of genuine warmth, intellectual curiosity, and self-aware humor about the extraordinary position in which life has placed him. Born in 1974, Tom is the son of Camilla and her first husband, Brigadier Andrew Parker Bowles, a man whose own story contains its share of complexity. Tom grew up with the awareness that his family's life was lived partly in the shadow of royal attention. In an interview quoted in the Telegraph, he described the experience of being chased at high speed by paparazzi, an experience that left him feeling viscerally protective of his mother. His professional life has been built entirely on his own merits. He is a respected food critic and author whose books have been well received by literary and culinary circles, not because of his royal-adjacent status, but because he writes with intelligence, passion, and genuine expertise about the history and culture of British food. His most recent book, Cooking and the Crown, was, by accounts across the British press, a serious and engaging work of culinary history. He is also, by the account of everyone who knows him, someone who loves his mother deeply and straightforwardly. His description of the relationship between Camilla and Charles speaks to this. He has been a wonderful step-grandfather. All you care about as a child is that your parents are happy, and my mother is exceptionally happy. It is the statement of a son who has watched his mother suffer and rebuild, and who takes quiet, genuine joy in seeing her content. When he joked about the revolution that would follow his ennoblement, he was not being flippant. He was being accurate. He has no illusions about the symbolic role he plays and no desire to step outside the carefully calibrated space he occupies. He has, across 2 decades of extraordinary public scrutiny, managed his position with a lightness of touch that many formally trained royals would struggle to match. That a man of this character should find himself at the center of a palace dispute about property transfers and information security speaks not to any fault of his own, but to the febrile atmosphere of a monarchy in transition, an institution caught between the security of tradition and the human messiness of the family at its heart. There is an old English garden tradition, one that Camilla would appreciate, of tending to the same soil across generations. You plant things not for yourself, but for the people who will walk through the garden long after you are gone. Ray Mill House, with its 12 acres of tended Wiltshire gardens, has been that kind of project for Camilla. She bought it in the hardest years. She tended it through the years of rehabilitation. She raised her children in its rooms. She retreated to it after grief. She transferred it, quietly and legally and carefully, to the next generation. And now, at the center of a royal family story that contains all the ingredients of a contemporary drama, property law, palace politics, blended family tensions, the ghost of Diana, the proximity of a new king, it stands as a kind of mirror, reflecting, to anyone willing to look, the question of what a family in extraordinary circumstances chooses to value. Does it choose control? Or does it choose connection? Does it choose suspicion? Or does it choose the harder, more rewarding work of actually knowing the people on the other side of the suspicion? Queen Camilla's plea, to whatever degree it was made, in whatever form it was received, was, at its most essential, a plea for that second choice. A mother standing in front of an institution and saying, "My son is a person, not a problem. See him clearly." For William, who has spoken openly about the mistakes of his parents' generation, who has publicly committed to the idea of a modernized, more emotionally literate monarchy, this moment offers something rare in royal life, a genuine opportunity to choose differently.